long ago, before my sleep apnea was diagnosed, I had a decade, maybe as much as 12 years, of symptoms that turned out to be related to my sleep apnea once it was diagnosed, but that at the time I had no clue about how to deal with. And there were occasions when I saw doctors and described what was going on. Nobody was sure. Sleep apnea itself was a diagnosis that was becoming better understood and more commonly given in those days. I was just a little bit ahead of the curve of it being applied and studied often enough, and I didn't even know to ask about it. The most common symptom that I had in those days was chronic headaches. I was in the military when this started. My duty day was usually 07:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon, 16:30. I could often feel a headache coming on before I even left my apartment and hopped in the car to drive to base. It would be a tingling in the back of my head or a little bit of tension, and I'd think, uh-oh, here we go. And I would take whatever painkillers I had handy in those days, probably just Tylenol or ibuprofen or something like that. And I'd grit my teeth and hope for the best. And sometimes the headache wouldn't pop up, but most days, by the time it was noon, lunchtime, I was in serious pain and would just have to sit there at my desk, doing my duties as well as possible, and gritting my teeth and waiting until I could carefully drive myself home, put myself to bed in a nice comfy bed at the earliest possible opportunity in a relatively darkened room, and not interact with anything except to let my cats that I had at the time snuggle with me if they decided to. But I wasn't good for anything. And usually the next morning I'd wake up refreshed and I'd be good to go. But this could happen at least as often as once a week, although not always. As I say, diagnosis and treatment of sleep apnea was less common in those days. By about 1996 or 1997, I had a diagnosis from my doctor at the time of atypical migraines. And he gave me migraine medication, which helped quite a bit, although it also nauseated me for about the first hour after I took it. And it didn't always completely eliminate the headaches, but it was a lot better than standard over-the-counter painkillers. But other people in my life also had lots of suggestions and advice and theories about what was going on. From, well, you obviously don't exercise enough, this is about you being too sedentary, to all kinds of other things. And in particular, in early 1998, went to visit my mother and her new partner, and I was having a bad headache that day, and my mom's partner said, oh, hey, I've done some craniosacral massage work, whatever, want me to see if I can help you out? So I said, sure. And he massaged my head and neck for 10 or 15 minutes. Certainly did me some good. And at the end of it, he looked at me, and as he walked off, he said, learn how to deal with stress better. I don't know about you. I don't think this is universal. But I'm the kind of person who, if you give me an order not to stress out, I'll stress out about the fact that you just gave me an order that I didn't ask you to give me. So it was counterproductive. Once I was diagnosed, I got different kinds of advice. In those days, sleep apnea tended to be associated with people who were overweight. I had people in my life who had apnea and also were overweight, and they told me, are you sure you have apnea? You're not big enough, you're not heavy enough. And I would have to sit there and tell them, listen, I've heard it all. I've been heavier than this. I've been a lot lighter than this. You know, when I was in the Air Force, I was fit and not that sedentary. In graduate school, I was more sedentary. I was also taking care of an elderly relative and pretty stressed out a lot of the time. All of these possibilities are possible, but they don't all fit. They don't all make sense. And when I address them, they don't necessarily do anything useful. I deal with stress a lot better than I used to. I'm much more fit than I was even at my slenderest in the military. And I can't go without my apnea treatment, my CPAP device, for more than a night or two without being right back in Headacheville. If you're the kind of person who's been through a misdiagnosis or a process of groping towards an accurate diagnosis, you probably understand how this goes. Even the most well-meaning people in your life will sometimes try to tell you that your problem is really simple and you should just try these things, X, Y, and Z that they list for you, and they forget to ask, what have you already tried? And you've tried A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, A, A, B, B, C, C, D, D, E, E, etc., etc. They're trying to help, but they're working so hard to be helpful that they forget to ask you what you already know, and they forget to check their own assumptions about whether or not their help is actually useful. As you know, I'm on team check your assumptions, investigate further, and don't assume that you can wander into somebody else's life and immediately tell them what to do. I don't work out to keep my apnea at bay. I do work out to make it easier to deal with if and when something comes up. And even with my machine, sometimes I have a bad night's sleep, sometimes I'm in headache territory. I also have occasional sinus problems that are not about the apnea, and sometimes that's the source of a headache rather than something directly with the apnea. Eventually, I had a specialist tell me based on my CAT scans exactly what was going on. I've probably talked about this in another video in the past, but it's important not to misdiagnose when we can avoid it. And this matters because even I want to give you the prescription that exercise will solve all of your problems. Nah, even I know better. It may solve some of them. It may solve all of them if you're one of the lucky people that it's the only thing that you were missing in life. It certainly can give you greater stamina and greater strength for getting through whatever you're dealing with, but it's not a cure-all, and we should never mistake it for one. I have other people in my life, friends and colleagues, who have migraines but not apnea, apnea but not migraines, and some people with both, and they get treated for both, and it's not the same. I'm lucky in that my apnea seemed to be the primary key to my quote-unquote migraines. They probably are migraines. Somehow the apnea was triggering them. Okay, I got lucky in that I only had to deal with one thing in order to have significant relief of pain and significant quality of life improvement. But in the same way that I would not tell a person with migraines, oh, you have to get your apnea checked, as if they haven't already, or as if that was going to be the magic bullet that fixed everything for them. I'll tell you that exercise is useful. I'll tell you that it's productive and fun, but I know people who can't exercise without triggering some other medical condition. It's not a cure-all. And none of us should be in the business of telling other people their business in such a way that we make their path towards healing or better quality of life harder. And we're all going to be tempted to fix things for other people in our lives, because if we've gone through something hard ourselves, it feels good to be of benefit to somebody else. But there's also risks of being wrong, and we need to stay aware of that. Just as we would want somebody to be aware of what we're dealing with and genuinely helpful rather than helpful by making it about themselves. If you've made it this far in the video, first of all, thank you. Second of all, if this video or any of my others have entertained you, made you smile, taught you something, given you some support on your own journey for mental or physical health and fitness, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if that's too much of a commitment right now, please at least give it a thumbs up. Thanks for your time, thanks for your support, thanks for your attention. Go kick some butt, including your own, in a good way. Love ya.